My name is Vask, and I am, as far as I know, the only living member of the 9th Reclamation Fleet still breathing on this miserable, wet, green rock the humans call home. I say breathing loosely. My lungs are not lungs. They are pressure bladders lined with filter mesh, and right now they are working overtime because the air here tastes like rot and rain and something burning that should not be burning. I am hiding under a fallen tree, in mud up to my second set of knees, watching a human bury my commanding officer. Let me back up. That sentence deserves context. 3 days ago there were 14 of us. 14 trained, decorated, thoroughly professional soldiers of the Cathroli Expeditionary Corps, sent down in a stealth pod to eliminate a single human target designated Threat Asset 01. One target. 14 of us. I remember laughing about it in the briefing room, actually laughing because it seemed insulting to the human, honestly. 14 elite operators for one soft, hairless, two-legged creature with no natural armor and no claws worth mentioning. Now there is one of us left, and he is under a tarp made of my own commanding officer's cloak, watching a human dig a hole with a shovel like it is the most normal thing in the world. I should tell you who the human is. His name, according to our intelligence packet, is Ethan Cole, 29 years old. Former military, some branch of theirs called the Army Rangers, discharged under classified circumstances. Our handlers told us he was dangerous. They told us he was combat effective beyond expected human parameters. They told us a lot of things, actually, and I am beginning to suspect our handlers were either lying to us or seriously underselling the situation, because right now Ethan Cole is humming while he digs a grave for the soldier who tried to put a plasma round through his skull 4 hours ago. He is humming. I recognize the tune, sort of, because we studied human culture before deployment. It sounds cheerful. It sounds like something you would hum while doing laundry, not while burying an alien corpse in a Kentucky forest. Let me tell you how we got here, because I think you deserve to understand just how badly we underestimated this man, and how thoroughly, completely, catastrophically we paid for it. We landed at 0200 local time, quiet as falling snow, in a valley about 6 kilometers from the target's registered residence. Our commander, a broad-shouldered veteran named Dross Kalimar, briefed us one last time under the tree cover, his mandibles clicking with what I now realize, in hindsight, might have been nerves rather than excitement. He is one man, Dross said. He sleeps, he eats, he bleeds. We go in, we confirm the kill, we go home, and command buys us all a drink. Ban Tolric, our demolitions specialist, made a joke about human drinks tasting like battery acid, and everybody laughed, and I laughed too, because why wouldn't I? We had scanned the residence, thermal signature, one human, asleep, alone. No visible defenses. No visible weapons beyond what our sensors identified as standard human hunting rifles, which our armor was rated to shrug off like rain. Our armor was rated to shrug off a great many things. It was not, as it turns out, rated to shrug off Ethan Cole. We split into 3 teams. Alpha Team went in through the front, because Dross believed in confidence over subtlety. Beta Team, my team, circled to cover the rear exit. Gamma Team took position on the ridge with long-range optics, because Dross was cautious in the way that all good commanders are cautious, which is to say, not cautious enough. I remember the moment everything went wrong with unpleasant, perfect clarity. The way you remember the exact second you step on broken glass. Alpha Team breached the front door at 0211. There was no alarm, there was no light. There was, for about 4 seconds, nothing at all, and then there was screaming. And then there was nothing again, which was somehow much, much worse. Dross called for a status report. Nobody answered. He called again. Static. Beta, hold position, he said into the comm, his voice tight. Gamma, report visual. Gamma's team leader, a sharp-eyed scout named Farron, came back sounding confused. Sir, thermal shows movement inside, one signature, moving fast. Very fast, sir. I have never seen a human move like that. Define fast, Dross said. There was a pause, a bad pause. The kind of pause that, If you have ever served in any military anywhere in the galaxy, you learn to hate with your whole body. Sir, I think he's outside now, Farron said. I think he's outside, and I don't know how he got outside. The door didn't open. Sir, I would have seen the door open. The calm cut to static, and then to screaming, and then to nothing. I want you to understand that I am not exaggerating for effect. I want you to understand that I am a professional, and professionals do not exaggerate, and I am telling you that within 90 seconds of first contact, 10 of the 14 soldiers in the 9th Reclamation Fleet were dead, and none of us on Beta Team had fired a single shot, and none of us had even seen him yet. Dross made the call to converge. In hindsight, I think it was the wrong call. In hindsight, I think the right call was to run immediately, screaming, back to the pod, and fly directly back into the sun. But hindsight is a luxury for the living, and Dross was, at that point, still trying to be a commander, which meant he was still trying to win. We moved in through the tree line, 4 of us, weapons up, night vision cycling through thermal and motion tracking, and I remember thinking, absurdly, that the forest was very beautiful. There is a kind of tree here they call pine, and it smells sharp and green even at night, and I remember thinking I would like to bring some of the resin home as a souvenir, and then Tolric was gone. Not shot, not stabbed, gone. 1 second he was on my left, and the next second there was a gap where he had been, and something in the darkness made a wet, cracking sound that I will hear for the rest of my life, however long that turns out to be. Contact left, I screamed, and I fired, and I hit nothing but a tree, and the tree exploded into splinters, and somewhere in the dark a voice, a human voice, calm and almost bored, said, "You missed." I want to be clear that this is not how humans are supposed to talk during a firefight. Our intelligence packets described human combat behavior as high stress, high adrenaline, prone to panic, and tactical error. Nobody mentioned that some of them talk to you like you are mildly disappointing them at a card game. Dross opened fire toward the voice. Nothing. The voice laughed, actually laughed, a short dry huff of a sound, and said, "Wrong tree too." I do not know how to explain what happened next, except to say that Ethan Cole came out of the dark like the dark had simply decided to stop hiding him. And Dross, a soldier with 11 years of frontline experience, a soldier who had survived the Tren colony uprising and the Vithara border skirmishes, was on the ground with his throat open before I even registered that the human had moved. Ban Feskil, our last remaining Beta team member, turned to run. I do not blame him. I have thought about this a great deal in the past 3 days, alone in the mud, and I do not blame him even slightly, because if I had been 1/2 second faster to think instead of freeze, I would have run too, and I would probably be dead right now instead of hiding under a log listening to a human hum while he digs. Feskil did not make it 10 meters. I froze. I am not ashamed to admit that. I have turned it over in my head so many times that the shame has worn smooth, like a stone in a river, and what is left underneath is just fact. I froze. Weapon raised, aimed at nothing, and Ethan Cole stood over the body of my commanding officer and looked directly at me through the dark like the dark meant nothing to him at all, and he said, in that same calm, almost gentle voice, "You can put that down. I'm not going to chase you if you run. I'm tired, and there's only so many holes I feel like digging tonight." I did not put it down. I am not that much of a coward. I fired 3 shots, and every one of them should have hit him, because I am a good shot. I have always been a good shot. It is the one thing about myself I have never doubted. And every one of them hit the tree behind where he had been standing, because he was not there anymore. And then something took the rifle out of my hand so fast I felt the bones in my fingers grind. And I was on the ground, and he was crouched over me, and I was absolutely, completely certain that I was about to die. He did not kill me. He looked at me for a long moment, his face close enough that I could see he was younger than our intelligence suggested, with tired eyes and a scar along his jaw and an expression that was not angry, which somehow frightened me more than anger would have. Angry, I could have understood. Angry made sense. This was something else. This was exhaustion, and something underneath the exhaustion that looked almost like grief. "How many of you are there?" he asked. I did not answer. Partly out of training, partly because I genuinely could not make my voice box work. 14, he said, answering his own question. I counted the pod. 14 seats. He sat back on his heels, still holding me down with one hand, which should not have been physically possible given the difference in our mass, and he looked past me into the trees, toward the sound of Gamma Team's scout, Farron, who I could hear still breathing somewhere in the dark, ragged and wet. You people keep sending soldiers, Ethan Cole said, quietly, mostly to himself. Every few months, different squads, different gear. Somebody up there really wants me dead. I found my voice, finally, small and cracking. You killed 13 of us. 13 of you tried to kill me first, he said, and there was no anger in it, just a flat, tired kind of correction, like he was fixing a typo. I don't go looking for this. I really, genuinely do not want this. I did not believe him. I want to be honest about that, because this is not a story where I am going to pretend I was wise from the beginning. I thought he was lying. I thought it was a trick. The kind of thing a predator says to a wounded animal to keep it still. I braced for the killing blow, whatever a human's version of a killing blow looks like when they are not using a weapon, and it did not come. Instead, he let go of me, stood, and said, "Go get your scout. He's not going to make it much longer without help, and I don't have the stomach to finish him off in front of you." I stared up at him. "You're letting me help him." "I'm letting you try," he said. "I'm not a doctor. I'm not even sure what's under your skin, but I'm not going to stop you." And then he turned and walked away into the dark, unarmed, unhurried, like he had not just single-handedly ended 13 professional soldiers in under 4 minutes. And I lay there in the mud of an alien world, shaking, and I thought, with a kind of horror that had nothing to do with fear for my own life, what in the void did we send this man's people to fight? Farron died anyway. I got to him and he was already gone. His chest opened in a way I will not describe, and I sat there with him in the dark for a long time, long enough that the local sun began to threaten the horizon, and I understood, somewhere in that grief-soaked hour, that I had two choices. I could try to make it back to the pod, alone, and report a catastrophic failure to command, and probably be executed for cowardice by officers who had never once set foot on this planet. Or I could stay and watch and try to understand exactly what had happened here, because something told me that the truth was bigger and stranger than one dangerous human. I chose to stay. I have been staying for 3 days. Which brings me back to the log, and the mud, and the humming. I found the graves this morning. 4 of them so far, neat and deep, marked with simple wooden crosses that Ethan Cole must have made himself, whittled from fallen branches with a knife I never saw him carry. He is burying my crew. Every single one he killed, he has been dragging into these woods, one at a time, over 3 days, and burying with what looks disturbingly like care. That is where I am now, under the log, watching him finish the 5th grave, which I am fairly sure holds Dross Calamar, commander of the 9th Reclamation Fleet, decorated hero of 2 border wars, laid to rest under a tree on a planet he was sent to conquer, by the hand of the man he was sent to kill. Ethan Cole straightens up, wipes his forehead with the back of his wrist, and looks directly at the log I am hiding behind. "You've been out here 3 days, he says, not loudly but clearly, like he is talking to a friend across a quiet room. "You're a terrible spy, by the way. You breathe like a leaking tire." My hearts, both of them, stop. "I'm not going to hurt you," he says, planting the shovel in the dirt. "I think it's about time you and I had a conversation, don't you?" I did not move. I want that on record. Every instinct in my body, every hour of training the Kithroli Expeditionary Corps ever drilled into me, said to stay still, stay quiet, let the silence do the work. But my hearts were pounding so loud I was half convinced he could hear those too. "I know you're there," Ethan Cole said again, and he actually smiled a little, tired and lopsided. "I've known since yesterday morning. You left a footprint in the mud shaped exactly like nothing that walks around here on 4 legs. Possums don't have 3 toes, buddy." I stayed under the log a moment longer, weighing my options, which were, in order of appeal, run and probably die in the open, stay hidden, and definitely die of humiliation, or stand up and see what happened. I chose the third option mostly because my legs had gone stiff from 3 days of crouching and I did not think I could run even if I wanted to. I stood. Mud fell off me in sheets. I must have looked pathetic, because something in his face softened even further, which I did not think was possible given how tired he already looked. "There you are," he said, like he was greeting an old acquaintance rather than the last surviving member of a squad sent to end his life. "You got a name?" "Vask," I said, before I could stop myself. Training says never give your name to the enemy. Training also did not prepare me for a version of the enemy who buries the dead and asks about footprints instead of finishing you off. "Vask," he repeated, testing the shape of it. "All right, Vask. I'm Ethan, though I guess you already knew that." "You have been killing my people for 3 days," I said, because it seemed important to say it out loud, to remind myself, to remind him, that this was not a friendly meeting between neighbors. "I killed 13 people in about 6 minutes, he corrected, quietly. 3 days ago, I haven't killed anybody since." He gestured at the graves behind him, 5 neat mounds in a clearing that was starting to look less like a battlefield and more like a cemetery somebody actually cared for. "The last 3 days I've just been cleaning up." "Why?" The word came out sharper than I meant it, more accusation than question. "Why bury us? We were sent to kill you." Ethan Cole sat down on a fallen trunk, elbows on his knees, and for a moment he did not look like the thing that had torn through my entire squad like they were made of wet paper. He looked like a man who had not slept properly in a very long time. "You want the short answer or the long one?" he asked. "I have time," I said. And it was true. I had nowhere else to be. My pod's return window had passed 2 days ago. Command, if they were even still monitoring this system, had almost certainly already logged the 9th Reclamation Fleet as lost with all hands. I was functionally a ghost. "Short answer," Ethan said, "is that I don't like leaving people in the dirt where they fall. Doesn't matter who they are. Doesn't matter what they came here to do. There's a difference between defending yourself and disrespecting the dead, and I try real hard not to cross that line, even when I've got good reason to." And the long answer, he was quiet for a moment, looking at the graves, and when he spoke again his voice had changed, gone lower, rougher around the edges. "Long answer is I've buried a lot of people in my life, Vask. Some of them were mine, some of them I couldn't save, a couple of them I killed myself, in places most people back home don't even know exist, doing things I don't get to talk about." He rubbed a hand over his jaw, over that scar I had noticed the first night. "You spend enough time doing that, burying people becomes the only part of the job that still feels human. So I do it, every time. Doesn't matter if they've got 2 legs or 6. I did not know what to say to that. It was not the answer I expected. I expected arrogance or cruelty dressed up as mercy, some kind of trick designed to lower my guard before he ended me the way he had ended the others. Instead, I got a tired man on a log, talking about grief like it was an old friend he had stopped being surprised by. "You are not what our intelligence said you would be," I admitted. That got a short laugh out of him, dry and humorless. "Yeah, I get that a lot lately, apparently." He looked at me properly then, studying me the way I imagine a xenobiologist would, if humans had xenobiologists who were not also terrifyingly efficient killers. "Can I ask you something? You have already killed 13 of my crew and buried them with your own hands," I said. "I do not think I am in a position to refuse you anything." "Fair," he said. "Why do they keep sending people after me? I've had, 4 of these little visits now, over the last year and a half. Different squads, different gear, always the same result. Somebody up the chain has got to be noticing the pattern by now. You'd think eventually they'd try something that isn't send more soldiers at the guy who keeps killing soldiers." I hesitated. This was the part of the conversation where training screamed at me loudest. "Do not disclose operational details to hostile assets. Do not confirm or deny mission parameters. Do not, under any circumstances, explain why command wants a target dead." But training had gotten 13 of my crewmates killed in under 6 minutes, and training was, apparently, run by people who thought sending 14 soldiers to kill 1 man was a reasonable use of resources, 4 times in a row, with the exact same outcome every single time. I found, sitting in that clearing with the mud drying stiff on my skin, that I did not owe training very much loyalty anymore. You survived something, I said slowly, before we ever came here. Something classified, in your own records, something even our intelligence packet only had fragments of. There is a belief among certain factions of command that whatever happened to you changed something, physically, inside you. That you are not simply a skilled soldier, that you are the result of an experiment, human-made or otherwise, and that whatever was done to you makes you valuable, or dangerous, depending on who you ask. Ethan went very still. It was the first time since I had seen him that he looked less like a wall and more like a person who had just been hit somewhere it hurt. They think I'm a weapon, he said quietly. They think you might become one, I said. Every time a squad fails to eliminate you, it does not discourage command. It confirms the theory. Each failure is treated as evidence, not deterrent. I am sorry. I did not understand how insane that logic was until I watched it play out on the ground, in the dark, with my own crew's blood in it. He was quiet for a long moment. When he spoke again, his voice had an edge to it I had not heard before, something colder, something that made me understand, suddenly and completely, why 13 trained soldiers had not been enough. They keep feeding people into a machine because the machine keeps confirming what they already believed, he said. That's not strategy, that's a religion. He looked up at me. How many more are coming, Vask? Truthfully, you don't have to protect them. God knows they didn't protect you. I do not know, I admitted, and it was the truth. The whole ugly truth of it settling on me for the first time since I had crawled under that log 3 days ago. But if the pattern holds, there will be another squad, larger probably, with better intelligence. Eventually command will stop sending soldiers who are simply told to kill you, and start sending soldiers who are told to capture you alive for study. And that terrifies me far more than anything that has happened this week. Ethan stood up slowly, and for the first time since I had met him, he looked less like a soldier and more like a man carrying something heavy that had no shape and no name. Then I guess we've got a problem to solve, he said. Both of us, I repeated. And the word felt strange in my mouth, foreign, impossible. I am the last surviving member of a squad sent to kill you. Why would you help me with anything? Because you're not my enemy right now, Vask, he said. You're just a guy who got sent somewhere by people who don't care if he comes back. I know a little something about that. He held out a hand, palm open, in that human gesture I recognized from our cultural briefings, the one that meant peace, or agreement, or the beginning of something. Besides, if your command is going to keep sending squads after me no matter what I do, then maybe it's time somebody who's actually been on the inside helps me figure out how to make them stop asking. I looked at his hand for a long moment. I thought about Dross, buried under the tree behind him, decorated hero of 2 wars, dead in under a minute. I thought about Tolric, and Feskil, and Farron, bleeding out in the dark while I hid, frozen, useless. I thought about command, safe in orbit, safe on some distant world, drawing up plans for a 5th squad, and a 6th, feeding soldier after soldier into a fire they refused to admit was burning them all. And then I reached out, mud-stiff fingers closing around his, and I shook the hand of the human I had been sent to kill. My commander used to say something before every mission, I told him, my voice steadier than I expected. He said, "We do not choose our orders, we only choose how we carry them out." I looked past him, at the 5 graves in the clearing, neat and cared for, dug by the hands of the man everyone told me was a monster. I do not think he would recognize what carrying out those orders has become. Ethan nodded slowly, releasing my hand, his eyes drifting once more to the graves behind him. "Nobody ever does," he said. "Not until it's somebody else's turn to dig the hole." Above us, the sky was beginning to lighten, the kind of pale gray that comes just before dawn, and somewhere out past the trees I knew, another pod was already being loaded, another squad already being briefed. 14 more soldiers who did not yet know they were about to become 5 graves, or 6, or however many it would take before somebody, somewhere, finally admitted that the machine itself was the thing that needed killing. I am Vask. I was the last of my crew, And on a cold morning in a forest that was never meant to be a battlefield, standing beside the grave of my own commander, dug by the hands of the man we were sent to murder, I stopped being a soldier of the 9th Reclamation Fleet and became something else entirely. I became the first one who decided to stop digging holes and start closing them for good.